Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kira Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kira, and you guys, you are in for the best treat of your life, Consultant Takeover. That's right. Get ready. They are dropping some dynamite. Our consulting team is incredible, guys, and we are so blessed and so fortunate to have them sharing tips and tricks with you today. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time on the Dental Team Podcast.
Denae, I'm back at it with marketing for you. I have enjoyed picking your brain. We've had a couple of them go out already. You and I doing some marketing. I know I've got some with some of the other girls, but I picked your brain a ton on one of these topics earlier, and we kind of led into today's. So I thought, let's just wrap up my podcast with you on marketing because I really loved you guys. Excel spreadsheets are our jam, and I finally have somebody on my side with it. So I thought, Denae, let's keep that conversation going. Like, let's talk more about tracking the marketing and for them to know how they know if it's working. Like, how do our practices know that these marketing efforts that they're putting in? I've got some practices spending, 3 to 8% of their overhead towards marketing. And half of them are like, I don't know, is it working? Is it not? And I'm like, this is driving me crazy. Like, I can't answer that question without the data. So how do they know? How do they acquire that data? And what does your brilliant brain have when it comes to a spreadsheet like that? Because I know you love a good KPI.
I love a good KPI. I love a good Excel spreadsheet. I'm a big fan of manually tracking what you're trying to analyze, because analytics are analytics. And sometimes the data that's going in is only as good as the data that's being put, or the data that's coming out is only as good as the data that's going in. So if you manually track it, you know exactly what that data is telling you. When I look at new patient trackers, I will always recommend you want to track any new patient that called, whether they actually scheduled or didn't. You want to track the new patients that did call. And for the new patients that didn't, track why they didn't. Was it because of Medicaid? Was it because of pricing? What was the reason they didn't actually schedule? So you want 2 columns on that tracker. That's the first one is going to be number of new patients that called. Okay. Did the patient actually schedule? The next column is why did the patient not schedule? And then you want to track for the new patients that did schedule, did they schedule for a next appointment? Because you want to be able to track not only what kind of new patients are calling us, but what new patients are getting converted. And then of those converted new patients, how many of those patients are going to end up turning into lifelong patients for you?
I love that. So you guys, a good Excel spreadsheet. And if you don't have a tracker, then create one. Like, we're giving you all the tools here, or reach out. I said that in our last podcast we talked about. I say it in every podcast. If we're talking about something like a sheet or a tracker or something, you can always reach out. We're happy to send you what we have. But I think that tracker, that's brilliant. So what was the new patient? Like, who called, right? So where did they hear about you? Did they schedule or not? If not, why? I love that piece because we really want to dial in the reason that the conversion's not happening. And then did they reappoint, which is something that we talked about at length the last time that I really loved, because we want to know, like you said before, if they're going to be a lifelong patient. So to break it down and really to talk about how to know if marketing is working or not, you guys can manually track everything under the sun, literally, and then never look at it and it doesn't matter, or look at it and not understand what you're looking for when you're looking at the numbers and the tracking doesn't matter. So then you stop tracking and it falls off. So Number one, make sure you have a tracker. So get one if you don't have one created, or update your tracker if you feel like we've said something that you don't have on your tracker. So number one, do that. Number two, make sure that you've got time set aside in your schedule to review your tracker, whether it's just you yourself or it's you and your leadership or marketing team. Make sure you guys are reviewing that. And then three, I think let's talk about some trends within the tracker, Denae, because we've got the tracker and now we can look at the tracker, but how do we truly know if the marketing is working or not? Those trends in there are what's telling us. So one, I think of, right, where are they coming from? So I think, Denae, if we see like all internal, fantastic. I love that. But what external marketing are we doing that's not generating a result, right? Or if we see, like, no matter what, where are they coming from? What's working and what's not? Because you're looking for an ROI. You guys always, when we're looking at marketing, we're looking for the marketing to have paid for itself. So you want to make sure whatever money that you're putting into marketing, whether it's an outsourced company, whether it's new patient gifts, like whatever it is that you guys are putting out into marketing, you guys are getting that return. So where are they coming from? And then Denae, break down a little bit. I loved the not scheduled. Like, why did they not schedule? So were they not, able to come to our practice for whatever reason? Did we not get the conversion? So break that down. What are some reasons first that a patient wouldn't schedule? And then what do we do with that information? Why does it matter?
So there's quite a few reasons why a patient might not schedule, but to break some of them, it might be because of insurance. Maybe they have an insurance plan like Medicaid that we are not in network with. It might be because of price, just they don't have an insurance and they weren't expecting to pay whatever they were, quoted over the phone. It also might be because of the experience that they had on the phone. It might be they didn't feel heard. They didn't feel like they were getting that VIP experience when they called. Remember, that first phone call is the patient's first impression of your practice. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't get that VIP experience, even if we do take the insurance, and even if finances were not a barrier for them, they still might not schedule because they didn't love the experience that they had just from that first phone call.
Totally. So I love that you said that. That's so huge.
Yep. So I would say that. And then another reason could be because of time. Maybe a new patient really needed to get in within a week and you didn't have an opening for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that. So, okay, I love those reasons. So then those are the things you're looking for. Why didn't they schedule? And typically, like you said, you're going to see insurance or couldn't get them in soon enough, I think, are probably the two. And those are the two that your front office is going to feel the most comfortable with saying. They're not always going to say like, oh, they didn't like me. So I feel like, though, within that not scheduled, the reason that we want to look at that is we want to see what barriers did we present to the new patient that didn't allow them to come to our practice. Because insurance or not, they can still come to your practice. Anyone can pay out of pocket and come to your practice. So are we doing our due diligence to present ourselves in a way that says, come to our practice, insurance or not? Are we trying to overcome those barriers, or are we hearing a barrier and saying, oh, well, guess not? Because how many times, Denae, have you called a practice, cold called, or worked in a practice, or built a practice up that the first question, so I just listened to a new patient call the other day that was like outlandish. It was so cringy. I wanted to cry. They answer the phone and you say, hey, are you taking new patients? And they say, yeah. What insurance do you have?
Right.
Well, now we're insurance minded. And if I don't have insurance, I might feel like, oh, well, I don't have insurance. Is that okay? Oh my gosh, I want you more than I want anyone else. So absolutely. But when we start with barriers like that, and we're not just super open and welcoming, then it creates barriers for the patient trying to schedule. And then I think on the topic you said, if they want to, well, number one, you want to be able to get your patients in within one business week. Mm-hmm. So if you can't get a new patient in within one business week, we need to take a look and evaluate your schedule. I know that there's a lot of practices out there like that right now because dentistry took a wild turn after we reopened after COVID. So I understand that, but there are a lot of practices out there who don't as well. So you said if they couldn't get in within the next week, it was going to be 3 weeks, they decided to go somewhere else. That's huge. So that's a barrier, but that's a barrier we can work with, and that's a barrier that we can fix. What are some options that the practice owner might be able to utilize to overcome a barrier like that?
To overcome a barrier like not being able to get new patients in, it's going to boil down to, do you have protected time in your schedule? And is your team honoring that time? Or are they filling it with other things? It's so important that we respect those blocks, that we honor those blocks for what we reserved them for. So if it's a new patient block, whether it's in hygiene or in the doctor's schedule, honoring those and knowing exactly when it's okay to start to release them. I mean, it's really going to be those blocks.
Yeah, for sure. So I think knowing those trends that we're looking for what marketing efforts are working, what marketing efforts are bringing patients to us, and then that conversion rate, just those two alone, not even adding the reappointment rate yet, but those two alone, the why didn't they schedule column and the where are they coming from, those two, you guys, on their own will give you a ton of data to see if your marketing is working. So now you know what efforts are working and what efforts aren't. You can cross-examine and see, maybe there's a trend that with all of the Google the patients that are saying, oh, I found you on Google, maybe they're all Medicaid, right? I had that happen with a practice I spoke on it. Well, I've had it happen with a couple of practices. I have a practice I'm working with now that's kind of going through that, where she's like, yeah, we're getting a really high volume of calls, but they're patients that won't come here, right? So there's a barrier. Won't is a barrier. Okay. So we've got to overcome that with verbiage with the practice. We're working on that. But on the marketing efforts side, if I can see that trend within there, that all of my Google referrals are Medicaid, I know that there's probably something within the Google AdWords that's populating really high for patients when they type in Medicaid dentist. If we're not a Medicaid dentist, I don't want to populate first on Medicaid dentist. You don't want to populate first for everything. You guys, you are not here to serve everyone. You are here to serve the people that you're here to serve. So don't attract everyone, attract who's good for your practice. So if you're not a Medicaid dentist, but you're the first one on the list when they type in Medicaid practice, well, that's going to be frustrating on everybody's standpoint, because your team's answering a million phone calls for patients that they can probably convert 10% of maybe, and actually help. And then on the other side, the patient calling is frustrated because now they can't trust Google. And I've been on the team side of that call, and the first question they always ask is, well, who can I call? And I'm like, I have no idea. So I think you guys, like, dialing it in, have that spreadsheet ready to go and start manually tracking. Not you, I would have your team, as the calls come in, your team is manually tracking on this Excel spreadsheet. Make it simple so that it's not difficult for them. I even have a practice, honestly, that uses sticky notes throughout the day, and then they transfer it to the Excel spreadsheet later. And I'm like, I don't care how we get the information, whatever is going to get them tracking it, that's all. So just get that information. So first and foremost, make sure you've got a tracker, update it if you need to with some of the pieces that Denae talked about today, and then watch those trends, track them and watch them. That's how you're going to know if your marketing is going to work. Now, Denae mentioned on a previous podcast with me that it takes time, you guys. If you're signing up with a marketing company today or last week, and then you come in today and you're like, oh my gosh, Tiff, this isn't working. I tracked the trends from last week and we're getting nothing. You guys, it takes realistically 6 to 8 to 12 weeks to see a good turnaround on external marketing efforts. So your marketing companies, you've got to give them some grace. You've got to give them some due diligence and understand that up front, you're going to be paying 3 to 8%, sometimes less if you guys are great, of your overhead towards marketing that you're not necessarily going to see the results for maybe a couple months on. So do your due diligence, allow them the time, and track it with them alongside so that you guys are pivoting and making those changes as you need to. Denae, it was so fun. I love this. I really do. Marketing, your brain in marketing makes me just happy. Probably, the spreadsheet has a lot to do with that. But is there anything you feel like in that wrap up, like the action items are, again, create that Excel spreadsheet if you don't have one, get your team using it, update it if you do have one, and then start tracking those trends weekly and monthly, or just monthly, no longer than that. But Denae, what else do you feel like, if there's anything in there that an action item they could benefit from today?
Yeah. I would just say, look for the trend, or look for the story that your Excel spreadsheet's telling you, and don't always put it on your external marketing. Really look internally and say, like, what is the story telling us that maybe we can do differently? Can we talk differently to our patients? Can we put those blocks in our schedule? That stuff.
Oh, that's a good one. That was one I wanted. Thank you. You reminded me. This is why I take notes, you guys. Every time I'm like, I got to take notes. So these are your actions. I love that, Denae. Thank you. Create an Excel spreadsheet if you don't have one, or a way that your team can track it and get it to you. Update your tracker if we gave you information you needed today. Look for those trends. So look for the story within that tracker that tells you what's working and what's not working. That's how you're going to know if your marketing is going to work. Don't change things that are working. Only change things that aren't working and give it its due diligence. And then put some new patient blocks in your schedule, guys, if you don't have those already. Again, a good rule of thumb is that they need to be seen within 1 week of calling your business. So if you're 3, 4, 6 weeks out, I've got practices that are like, Tiff, I can't see people till October. And I'm like, that's obscene. It's like 4 to 6 weeks from now, we've got to do something here. Let us know if you guys need help with that. If you need help navigating it, if you need an Excel spreadsheet or help getting your team on board to track it, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We work with businesses just like yours all the time. We work with teams constantly. I have personally seen Denae, literally personally seen her take a team and get them on board with tracking things, and really I watched this incredible transformation of this team live and in person, and it was just so much fun. And you guys, it just inspired me to really, truly believe all over again in everything that we're doing. So Denae, you are a rock star consultant and coach and friend and everything to these clients, just so you know, and to our team. And you guys, listeners, I want you to know that we're all here for you. We're here supporting you. You have our brains behind anything that you ask for. If you reach out to us at hello@thedentalateam.com, we're there on the other side. We have a lot of options. When it comes to coaching and consulting. We have a lot of free options, and then we actually have some new fun stuff that we're working on launching for practices that are just looking to get things rolling. So reach out to us if you need us, and as always, leave us a 5-star review if you haven't done so already. We really love to hear how much value you took from these podcasts. It helps us to create the next one. So thank you so much, Denae. Thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me pick your brain today. I truly appreciate it.
Yes.
All right, guys, that's a wrap, and we'll catch you next time.
And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.